paint a picture in your mind for a second. It is the third week of May, 2026.
Right.
You are standing on the grounds of the historic Aronimink Golf Club in Pennsylvania. The air is thick, the winds are just whipping across the property, and this meticulously restored Donald Ross golf course is absolutely baring its teeth. We are looking at a true watershed moment in the sport today. A single week where century-old traditions violently collided with, well, unprecedented technological leaps and a geopolitical shockwave that literally changed the global sporting landscape overnight.
Yeah, it really was a perfect storm of elements. I mean, usually when we analyze a major championship, there is a predictable rhythm, the narrative we have all seen before. But you step into this 108th PGA Championship, and suddenly all the conventional models are just broken. We are looking at a competitive and commercial landscape that shifted on its axis in the span of a few days.
Exactly. And welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today isn't just to give you a recap of a leaderboard. What we are doing is a masterclass in elite-level tournament breakdowns, high-tech performance analysis, and the shifting tectonic plates of the entire golf industry.
Absolutely.
But real quick, before we unpack this and get into the architecture of Aronimink, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow. We spend a lot of time here exploring the advanced side of the modern game. We cover biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, putting performance, launch data.
All the heavy hitters.
Right. We look at AI golf coaching, modern teaching systems, pressure performance, distance control, putting speed control, data-driven instruction, elite player movement patterns, golf technology evolution, 3D motion analysis, and high-performance coaching systems. And today, honestly, all of those threads are coming together at once.
They absolutely are, because look, to truly understand the future of the game and how those advanced concepts apply, we first have to deconstruct the ultimate test of course management and mental pressure that just unfolded in Aronimink. The architecture there dictated absolutely everything about how players moved, how they thought, and ultimately how they collapsed under pressure.
Yeah, I was looking through the notes on Gil Hanse and Jim Wagner's massive restoration of this historic layout. They turned it into a par 70, playing at nearly 7,400 yards.
Yeah.
But the number that just really jumps off the page is the bunkering.
Oh, the bunkers.
Yeah, they increased the bunker count from 74 to an absolutely staggering 5 and 74.
It's wild, and we have to look at how that architectural choice fundamentally alters a player's kinematic sequencing. When you stand on a tee box and you see 174 bunkers, pinched landing zones, and fairways that are narrowed down to just 32 yards, your brain registers an immediate threat.
Right.
And here is the real kicker of this restoration. They completely eliminated the intermediate route.
Quite completely. So, I mean, if your ball misses that 32-yard fairway by a single inch, it doesn't get a friendly bounce or set up in the first cut.
No, not at all. It rolls directly into penalizing thick rough.
Wow. Playing Aronimink sounds like tightrope walking without a safety net.
Yeah.
Miss a 32-yard fairway, and you don't get a friendly bounce. You get immediately penalized.
Exactly. And that visual intimidation creates immense physical tension. And tension is the enemy of a fluid golf swing. It acts like a brake pad on your muscles. So your kinematic sequence, the order in which your hips, torso, arms, and club accelerate and decelerate, it starts to get completely disrupted. Players start trying to, steer the ball out of fear, firing their hands too early, instead of just rotating freely.
That makes perfect sense. I was reading through the Zen Golf data profile going into the week, and it noted that a flat, perfect driving range swing just wasn't going to survive here. The algorithm to win required elite tee to green performance, spin-sensitive wedge approaches, a high long iron flight, and what they called a short game stabilizer profile. What exactly does that mean in practice?
Well, a short game stabilizer is a player who uses their wedge play, and they're putting not just to save par, but to actually stop the bleeding of emotional momentum. When you are dealing with severely sloped green complexes and blind tee shots, you are going to miss greens. A stabilizer controls the spin rate on a wedge perfectly, even when, say, the ball sits above their feet and the green pitches away from them.
Right, so it neutralizes the modern bomb and gouge strategy.
Yes, exactly. The whole idea of just hitting it as hard as humanly possible and dealing with the consequences later completely dies on a course like this.
Which brings us to Aaron Rai, the man who ultimately conquered the algorithm. He's the first English-born winner of the PGA Championship since 1919. And he did it by being this incredibly fascinating traditionalist. I mean, for those who don't know, he wears 2 gloves.
Yeah, both hands.
Which is a habit he formed as a kid battling freezing winters in England. And he actually uses plastic iron covers. He is completely unique out there.
He really is a process-driven anomaly. But look at how his methodology held up on Sunday. I mean, he shoots an eagle on the front nine, a bogey-free back nine, and he basically put the tournament on ice with those clutch approach shots on the 15th and 16th holes. He didn't try to overpower the golf course, he just outmanaged it.
So precise.
Exactly. He understood how to control his angle of attack and his dynamic loft to ensure the club's grooves perfectly interacted with the golf ball, producing exact spin control.
I have to ask you about the broader implications of this, though. For the last 5 years, everyone has been obsessing over raw clubhead speed. With everyone obsessing over that distance, does Rye's victory prove that the obsession is actually blinding modern players to the lost art of angle creation and wedge spin control?
That is a great question. I wouldn't go so far as to say the distance era is over, because distance will always be a massive statistical advantage. But what Rye proved is that when a course setup actively punishes marginal misses with severe consequences, well, precision and emotional regulation become the ultimate premium. While Rye stayed incredibly stoic, the intense pressure of Aronimink's algorithm caused immense emotional momentum shifts and spectacular chaos for the rest of the elite field.
Chaos is definitely the right word. Friday afternoon and Saturday were an absolute pressure cooker. We had brutal winds whipping across the property, those severely sloped greens drying out, and a leaderboard that was spinning like a roulette wheel. The stats say at one point, 14 different players held the lead.
It was a complete free-for-all, and you could physically see the psychological weight of a major championship just crushing people. Take Alex Smalley, for example.
Yeah, that Saturday surge was wild.
It really was. He fires off 5 back nine birdies for a 68. Suddenly, he's holding a 54-hole lead in a world-ranking event for the first time in his career. The mental strain of trying to sleep on that lead, knowing exactly what a major victory would do to your career trajectory, is almost unimaginable.
And then on the flip side of that pressure, you have Cameron Smith's wild resurgence.
Yeah.
The notes on his pre-tournament prep are fascinating. Right before this major championship, he decides to drop his longtime swing coach, Grant Field, and hire Claude Harmon III specifically to fix his kinematic sequencing. I mean, it's like swapping out the engine of a Formula One car the night before the Monaco Grand Prix.
It is neurologically staggering to even attempt that. Motor patterns are deeply ingrained neural pathways, you know? Under extreme pressure, the human brain automatically defaults to the strongest, most familiar pathway. To try and change the mechanical sequence of your swing and change the primary coaching voice in your head under major championship pressure is like trying to change your handwriting while riding a roller coaster.
But somehow, it almost worked. He shot an electrifying front 932 on Saturday. And the crazy part of the data is that he only hit 6 fairways that entire day. He was constantly out of position.
Which goes right back to the Zen golf profile we discussed earlier. That is the short game stabilizer at work. He relied entirely on elite iron play from the rough and his putter to navigate the mess. But for players who rely on total control from the fairway, we saw some severe mental unraveling.
Oh, absolutely. Jason Day suffered those late double bogeys. Rory McIlroy got into that angry altercation with a fan as he tried to capitalize on his own halo effect.
Right.
Even Scottie Scheffler, the world #1, couldn't handle the setup. He literally slammed the pin locations in his press conference, calling the setup kind of absurd. When a world #1 says something like that, how do we interpret it? Is that a legitimate architectural critique or just the psychological defense mechanism of a player whose usual data model just broke under pressure?
It is almost entirely the latter. Elite players build their immense confidence on highly predictable outcomes. They know exactly what a perfectly struck 8-iron is supposed to do, but when a course gets this firm and the slopes reject perfectly struck golf shots into a bunker, the illusion of control shatters.
The course stops rewarding good swings.
Exactly. When traditional feel and predictable reality break down under that kind of pressure, players feel completely lost. And when they feel lost, they increasingly turn to high-tech performance analysis to find certainty and rebuild their swings, which leads directly to the massive technological leaps revealed this very same week.
The tech revolution in golf really is moving at light speed right now. Let's start with Bryson DeChambeau leading an 8-figure acquisition of a Seattle-based startup called Sportsbox AI. This technology uses standard smartphone video to create markerless 3D motion capture. How is this different from the 3D capture we are used to seeing?
Oh, it is a massive paradigm shift. Getting a true biomechanical profile used to require a player to go into a $1 million performance lab, put on a tight suit covered in reflective ping pong balls, and be surrounded by optical cameras. Now, markerless capture means you just point an iPhone at a player on the driving range. The AI instantly recognizes the human joints and maps them in 3D space. It gives you exact rotational degrees of the pelvis, rib cage, and lead arm in seconds.
So you literally have an MRI for your golf swing in your pocket.
Basically, yes.
But the notes say they didn't just stop at capture. They introduced something called SAMI, an agentic AI coaching assistant powered by Google Cloud. What makes an AI agentic in this context?
An agentic AI doesn't just hand you a spreadsheet of raw numbers and leave you to figure it out. It acts as an autonomous agent. It analyzes your 3D motion data, compares it against a massive database of elite swings, identifies the flaw, say your pelvis is stalling through impact, and then literally speaks to you in plain language, suggesting a specific drill to fix your right miss.
Wait, really? It talks to you?
Yeah, it gives you actionable drills. Deschambault used this exact system right before the 2024 U.S. Open, and now he essentially owns the company.
The democratization of that kind of elite data is mind-blowing. It was echoed across the 9 hot golf products of 2026 from the PGA show. Callaway introduced the Paradii My Torque driver. They used generative AI to design the internal architecture behind the club face.
Right, because generative AI can run millions of simulated impacts in hours. It created an organic lattice-like structure behind the face that a human engineer would probably never think to design. The simulator data shows that even if you strike the ball entirely off the heel or toe, the face flexes in a way that retains up to 98% of peak ball speed.
That is just incredible engineering, and we are seeing data accessibility explode everywhere. FlightScope launched the Miyavo Pro, bringing a quad Doppler launch monitor down to a sub-$2,000 price point, which gives amateur players hyper-accurate data on things like spin axis and attack angle.
It's changing how everyone practices.
And then there is the Bettinardi Innovi 10.0 Tempo Grip. This thing literally uses haptic feedback to train your hands. How does a buzzing grip actually help your distance and speed control on the greens?
It comes down to neuromuscular association. The grip vibrates at a specific tempo. When you practice, your brain starts to subconsciously link the physical sensation of that vibration with the exact speed needed for, say, a 20-foot putt. It basically bypasses conscious thought. You aren't thinking about how far back to take the putter. Your nervous system just reacts to the ingrained feeling.
Even the viewer experience at home is utilizing this tech. The LPGA signed a groundbreaking 2026 broadcast deal with FM and TrackMan. They are increasing their camera count by 50%, using drones to map course architecture, and quadrupling their shot tracing capabilities. Every single camera in a tracing position is going to show exact ball flight and curve.
It provides total clarity for the viewer and total certainty for the player.
But I do wonder about the unintended consequences of all this certainty. I mean, if every amateur and pro has access to perfect biomechanical data, markerless 3D motion capture, and agentic AI coaching telling them exactly how to swing, does the game lose its artistry? Can a player become so paralyzed by data that they lose the natural feel required to execute a shot under the intense mental pressure we just saw at Aronimink?
It's the ultimate paradox of modern sports, honestly. Data provides unparalleled clarity and preparation, but elite execution on the course requires freedom. You have to translate that data into intuitive application. The players who dominate won't necessarily be the ones with the most data. They will be the ones who know how to completely turn off the computer side of their brain when they step onto the first tee.
Right. Because while technology can give you absolute certainty regarding your swing on the course, the actual business of professional golf off the course was thrown into absolute uncertainty this week.
Oh, it was a geopolitical earthquake.
The bombshell news dropped right in the middle of the week. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, the PIF, has officially confirmed they will pull all financial funding from the LIV Golf League at the end of the 2026 season. Now, just to be clear for our listeners, we are just looking at the facts reported here impartially, not taking any sides on the politics of it all, but strictly from a business and sports integration standpoint. This is huge.
The magnitude of that decision cannot be overstated. This was the financial engine that fractured professional golf, drove player salaries into the hundreds of millions of dollars, and sparked years of intense litigation. And now they're just turning off the tap.
The official reason cited in the release was investment priorities and current macro dynamics. Yasir Al-Rumayyan has stepped down as the LV chairman. The league has hastily created an independent board that is desperately seeking alternative long-term investors just to kick the lights on past the end of the year. It's like a massive hostile corporate takeover where the billionaire backer suddenly unplugs the servers, leaving the employees locked out of the building.
That is exactly what it feels like. And this immediately shifts all the leverage back to the PGA Tour. You suddenly have some of the biggest names in the sport looking at a league with an expiring bank account. It presents the PGA Tour with a massive, highly complex reintegration puzzle.
Yeah, PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolapp released a statement saying they are aggressively pursuing ways to enhance the fan experience, which is heavily hinting at the creation of a returning member program. Players are already maneuvering. Patrick Reed publicly announced his plans to return to the PGA Tour for the 2027 season, and Brooks Koepka's situation is being heavily scrutinized by the media.
This is a critical juncture for the governance of the sport. The PGA Tour has to decide what its core identity is moving forward. How do you balance the commercial reality that fans and sponsors demand to see the best players in the world competing against each other with the internal politics of the locker room?
Yeah, that's tough.
You have a large group of players who turned down massive PIF contracts to stay loyal to the PGA Tour.
So if you are the PGA Tour, do you welcome these players back with open arms to restore the competitive integrity of the sport? Or does a returning member program just reward defection and alienate the players who stayed loyal?
If we look impartially at the history of sports mergers and fractured leagues, like the ABA merging with the NBA or the AFL merging with the NFL, commercial realities almost always override personal grievances eventually. The product is simply better when the talent is unified. But the transition period is going to be incredibly messy. There will likely have to be concessions made to appease the loyalists, perhaps steep financial penalties, a temporary loss of voting rights, or suspended status for returning players. It is going to be a delicate, high-stakes negotiation.
It really synthesizes the sheer magnitude of the week perfectly. Whether we were talking about a unique traditionalist like Aaron Rai winning a major agentic AI mapping the human body in real time, or billion-dollar leagues collapsing in the boardroom, the sport of golf is undergoing a violent but fascinating evolution.
It reminds us that while the tools we use to play the game change and the business models evolve, the ultimate test remains the human element. The ability to deal with pressure, adapt to changing physical environments, and manage the mind when the illusion of control breaks down.
Absolutely. This single week in May 2026 really encapsulated the past, present, and future of golf all at once. From Aaron Rai's dual-gloved grit at a Golden Age Donald Ross course, to AI swing coaches, to the dramatic restructuring of global golf tours. Before we wrap up, if there are specific golf topics, technologies, biomechanics concepts, putting theories, coaching systems, tournament analyses, or player breakdowns you'd like us to research and cover in future episodes, please let us know in the comments. We actively create episodes based on what the community wants to learn more about.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. As AI perfectly optimizes our biomechanics and course architects eventually max out the physical length of golf courses, the physical advantages in golf are disappearing. Will the major championships of the 2030s be won entirely in the mind? And if so, does that make a quiet, process-driven traditionalist like Aaron Rai the ultimate prototype for the future of golf rather than an echo of its past?
That is a brilliant question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the 2026 PGA Championship and the shifting landscape of the game. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will catch you on the next one.